Hey everyone, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up button. Now, let me tell you a story that starts with a birthday party and ends with a family secret that destroyed everything. People always remember the exact moment their life splits into before and after, even if they don't realize it right away. For Keziah, that moment arrived wrapped in laughter, luxury, and cruelty, all under one glittering roof. It happened at her nephew's birthday party, held at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, the Onyx Lounge. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, throwing warm golden light across white marble floors. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, roasted meats, and fresh flowers imported just for the occasion. Soft music played in the background, barely audible over the chatter of guests and the high-pitched laughter of children. This wasn't just a birthday party. For the St. Clair family, every gathering was a performance. Children ran between tables, boys in tiny tailored suits and girls in puffy designer dresses, their laughter careless as they nearly knocked over champagne glasses and appetizer plates. Parents watched them with indulgent smiles, correcting them gently, proudly, as if every misstep was still proof of success. Everyone belonged. Everyone except Keziah. She sat quietly at the long table, her posture straight, her hands hidden beneath the tablecloth as she rubbed her cold fingers together. The room wasn't cold, but her body felt frozen anyway. She felt like a guest who had wandered into the wrong celebration, like an outsider observing a life she was never meant to live. Everywhere she looked, she saw pairs and groups. Mothers rocking babies. Fathers leaning in close to whisper to their wives. Grandparents counting milestones, comparing first words and first steps. There was Tanisha, Xavier's cousin, gently rocking her chubby infant, murmuring something only the baby could hear. There were family friends showing photos on their phones, laughing loudly. Keziah had nothing to show. Across from her sat her husband, Xavier. Impeccably dressed, calm, respected. He looked exactly as he always did at these events, confident, untouchable, perfectly controlled. People listened when Xavier spoke. They admired him. He carried the St. Clair name effortlessly. He hadn't looked at her once since they arrived. Keziah told herself not to overthink it. Married couples drifted apart sometimes. Silence didn't always mean something was wrong. At least, that's what she'd been telling herself for years. Then Zenobia Street. Claire stood up. Even without speaking, she commanded the room. Her silver hair was styled flawlessly, her diamonds catching the light with every movement. She held her champagne glass like a symbol of victory. Zenobia lived for moments like this, not because she loved birthdays, but because she loved being seen. She tapped her glass with a spoon. The sound sliced through the room. Conversations faded. Children slowed. All eyes turned toward her. Keziah's stomach tightened. Everyone, Zenobia said smoothly, her voice trained by decades of power and privilege. Take a look around. She gestured toward the room. Look at our family. Look how blessed we are. Children everywhere. Laughter. Growth. This is what success truly looks like. Soft murmurs of agreement rippled through the guests. Keziah felt her chest tighten. She already knew what was coming. Somewhere deep inside, she felt it approaching like a slow, unavoidable wave. Zenobia's eyes moved deliberately around the room, then stopped. On Keziah. Everyone here has children, Zenobia said calmly. A few people nodded. Someone laughed awkwardly. Then she added, without hesitation, except one. The room went silent. She's the only one among us who is useless. The word landed like a blow. Useless. Keziah felt heat rush to her face, then disappear entirely. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, all of it faded into a dull ringing in her ears. She stared ahead, unable to move, unable to breathe properly. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Folks froze midair. Someone cleared their throat. Keziah slowly turned her eyes toward Xavier. This was the moment, she thought. This was where he would speak. Where he would stand up. Where he would remind everyone that she was his wife. That she mattered. Xavier stared at his plate. He said nothing. Zenobia smiled, satisfied, as if she had merely stated a simple fact. Of course, she added lightly, we all have our roles to play. She raised her glass. To family. A few voices echoed the toast, hesitant and forced. Something inside Keziah shattered. She stood up quietly and walked toward the exit. No one stopped her. No one followed. Behind her, the party resumed, louder than before, relieved to move on. Outside, freezing rain hit her face like needles. Her thin coat soaked through almost instantly. She walked without direction, her heels slipping on wet pavement, tears mixing with rain until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. 3 years of doctor visits. 3 years of treatments, injections, silent prayers. 3 years of pretending she was fine while congratulating others on the lives she couldn't have. And tonight, all of it had been reduced to a single word. Useless. She didn't go home. She checked into a small hotel near the river, one Xavier didn't know about. She sat on the edge of the bed, still in her wet clothes, staring at the wall until dawn crept in through the curtains. Her phone buzzed once, close to midnight. A message from Xavier. Where are you? That was it. No apology. No defense. No anger on her behalf. Just a question. She didn't reply. When she returned the next evening, the apartment felt hollow. Xavier stood in the living room, his expression unreadable. You embarrassed my mother, he said. In that moment, Keziah understood something she had avoided for years. She had been waiting for permission to matter. She packed one suitcase that night and left everything else behind. When the door closed, the sound echoed down the hallway, final and clean. 3 years later, Zenobia Street. Claire would return to her hometown holding twins in her arms. And when the truth about their father came out, the silence would be louder than any birthday party ever had been. 3 years earlier, Keziah had believed leaving would hurt less than staying. She was wrong about that. Leaving didn't end the pain. It just changed its shape. The first weeks after she walked out blurred together. She stayed in a small rented room on the other side of the city, the kind of place meant for short stays and forgotten quickly. The walls were thin, the mattress too soft, and the window faced a brick building so close it blocked the light. But it was quiet. No judgment. No whispers. No reminders of who she was supposed to be. She cried at night and stayed numb during the day. She took long walks with no destination, learning the streets by accident. She avoided places where families gathered. Parks. Cafes with play areas. Grocery aisles filled with tiny shoes and cereal shaped like cartoon animals. She changed her phone number. Xavier tried calling for a week, then stopped. Zenobia never reached out at all. That silence told her everything she needed to know. Keziah found work at a small publishing office, proofreading manuscripts no one else had time for. The pay was modest, but the work was steady. Words made sense to her. They followed rules. They didn't judge. She buried herself in pages and deadlines, slowly building a routine that didn't revolve around anyone else. At night, she wrote. Not stories meant to be published. Just thoughts. Fragments. Questions she had never been allowed to ask. Sometimes she wrote letters she never sent. To Xavier. To Zenobia. To the version of herself that had once believed love would be enough. Months passed. The ache dulled, but it never disappeared. It lived in small moments. When she saw a child reach for their mother's hand. When she heard the word family spoken too casually. When her body reminded her, every month, of what it still couldn't do. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. She was leaving work when the sky opened suddenly, rain pouring down in thick sheets. She stood under the building's awning, waiting it out, when a man stepped beside her, shaking water from his jacket. Guess we're stuck, he said, smiling slightly. She nodded, polite but distant. He didn't push. They stood there in silence, listening to the rain. After a moment, he said, I'm Daniel. Kazaya, she replied. That should have been the end of it. But when the rain slowed, he held out an umbrella. You can share, if you want. She hesitated, then stepped under. They walked a block together, exchanging nothing more than basic conversation. Where they worked. How unpredictable the weather had been lately. When they reached her turn, she thanked him and expected him to continue on his way. Instead, he said, if you ever want coffee, there's a place on 5th that makes it strong enough to fix most bad days. She almost said no. Almost. But something in his voice lacked expectation. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't looking at her like she owed him anything. So she said, maybe. 2 weeks later, she found herself sitting across from him in that same cafe. Daniel was different from anyone she had known. He didn't dominate the room. He listened more than he spoke. He asked questions and waited for answers. When she deflected, he didn't pry. When she went quiet, he let the silence sit. They didn't talk about her past at first. She liked that. Their meetings became regular. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks through the city at night, when everything felt less exposed. She told herself she wasn't falling. She told herself she was just breathing again. One evening, months later, she finally told him the truth. About the party. About the word. About the way her marriage had ended with the door closing and no one standing on her side. She waited for pity. It never came. Instead, Daniel said quietly, that wasn't about you. She laughed bitterly. It felt like it was. I know, he said. But cruelty usually says more about the person speaking than the one listening. No one had ever said that to her before. Their relationship grew slowly, carefully. Kazaya built walls without realizing it, and Daniel never tried to tear them down. He just waited, patient, steady. A year later, she noticed the change before she allowed herself to believe it. Fatigue that didn't fade. Nausea in the mornings. A strange, fragile hope she refused to name. She took the test alone, in her bathroom, hands shaking so badly she dropped it into the sink. Positive. She sat on the floor and cried until her chest hurt. Fear followed quickly. Then disbelief. Then something softer, warmer, and terrifying. She told Daniel that night. He went quiet, not with panic, but with awe. Then he laughed, a sound that broke something open in her chest, and pulled her into his arms. "We'll figure it out," he said. Weeks later, the doctor confirmed it. Twins. The word felt unreal. After years of nothing, suddenly everything. The pregnancy wasn't easy. There were complications, long nights, moments when old fears crept back in and whispered that this happiness was temporary, that something would go wrong, that she didn't deserve this. But she held on. She gave birth on a quiet morning, the sky pale and calm. Two tiny cries filled the room. Two lives she had been told she might never have. She named them in her heart before anyone else held them. 3 years after the night she was called useless, Keziah returned to her hometown. Not to beg. Not to explain. But because life had brought her there, and she was no longer afraid of being seen. Zenobia Street. Claire stood frozen when she saw her. And when she looked down at the twins in Keziah's arms, something in her carefully controlled world began to crack. The truth was about to come out. And when it did, no amount of money or power would be able to silence it. Keziah hadn't planned the reunion. Life simply pushed her back to the place she once ran from, the way unfinished stories always do. The city looked the same on the surface. The same wide streets. The same polished buildings. The same sense of quiet superiority that hung in the air. But Keziah was different, and that changed everything. She walked through the arrivals hall with the twins asleep in their stroller, their small chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Every step felt unreal. 3 years ago, she had left this city broken and empty-handed. Now she had everything she was once told she would never have. Daniel walked beside her, one hand resting lightly on the stroller handle. He didn't speak, sensing her focus, her nerves. He didn't need to ask how she felt. He already knew. The reason for their return was simple. Daniel's work had brought him here temporarily, a 6-month contract too important to decline. Keziah had hesitated at first. She knew what this place held. Memories. People. Judgments. But she also knew something else now. She was no longer running. News traveled fast in a city like this, especially within families like the St. Clairs. It didn't take long. Zenobia heard Keziah had returned before she heard anything else. At first, she dismissed it. A passing rumor. Someone confusing names. Keziah had disappeared years ago, and people like her didn't come back. Not after failing so publicly. Then someone mentioned the children. Twins. Zenobia's hand froze around her teacup. Twins were not common. Not coincidences. Not something you forgot to ask about. She told herself it meant nothing. That Keziah had probably adopted. Or married some insignificant man. Or made herself useful in some other way. Still, the thought lodged itself deep in her mind. Keziah's first encounter with the past happened in a place she hadn't expected. A small bookstore near the old financial district, tucked between cafes and offices. She was browsing quietly, one twin strapped to her chest, the other asleep in the stroller, when a familiar voice spoke her name. Keziah. She turned. Tanisha stood there, older now, thinner, her confidence dulled by time. For a moment, neither of them spoke. I thought it was you, Tanisha said finally, eyes drifting to the babies. I heard, but I wasn't sure. Keziah nodded. I'm back for a while. Tanisha's gaze softened. They're beautiful. Thank you. There was an awkward pause, heavy with things neither of them wanted to say. Xavier, Tanisha began, then stopped. He doesn't know. Kazaya raised an eyebrow slightly. No what? Tanisha swallowed. That you're back. Or that you have children. Kazaya felt nothing at the mention of his name. No anger. No sadness. Just distance. Then let's keep it that way, she said calmly. But cities like this didn't keep secrets for long. The St. Clair annual charity gala arrived 2 weeks later, exactly the kind of event Zenobia lived for. It was invitation only, exclusive, dripping with influence and money. Attendance wasn't optional if you wanted to stay relevant. Daniel had been invited through his firm. Kazaya almost declined. Almost. She stood in front of the mirror that night, adjusting a simple, elegant dress. Nothing flashy. Nothing defensive. Just herself. The twins stayed with a trusted sitter, and for the first time in years, she walked into a St. Clair event without fear twisting her stomach. The ballroom glittered. Cameras flashed. Laughter rang out like rehearsed music. And then she saw them. Xavier stood near the center of the room, older, sharper around the edges. Beside him was Zenobia, radiant and commanding as ever. For a moment, time folded in on itself. Xavier saw her. The color drained from his face. His eyes moved from her face to Daniel's hand resting protectively at her back, then back again. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. Zenobia followed his gaze. Her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. The room didn't go silent this time. But something subtle changed. Conversations slowed. Eyes followed the line of tension stretching between them. Kazaya met Zenobia's stare without flinching. Zenobia stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. You have some nerve, she said, her voice low, controlled. Kazaya smiled politely. Hello, Zenobia. After everything, Zenobia continued, you show up here as if nothing happened? As if everything happened, Kazaya replied calmly. Zenobia's eyes flicked to Daniel. And who is this? My partner, Kazaya said. The father of my children. The word landed heavily. Zenobia's breath caught. Xavier stiffened. What children? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kazaya turned to him for the first time. Really looked at him. He looked smaller than she remembered. My twins, she said evenly. They're 3. Zenobia's composure cracked. That's impossible, she said sharply. You couldn't? I couldn't what? Kazaya asked softly. Be useful. Silence pressed in around them. Faces turned openly now. Whispers spread like wildfire. Zenobia's lips trembled. Who is their father? Kazaya didn't look at Daniel this time. She looked straight at Zenobia. You already know, she said. And in that moment, Zenobia understood that the truth she had buried 3 years ago was about to destroy her. The past was no longer behind them. It was standing in the middle of the room, demanding to be seen. The rumors exploded the next morning. By noon, Kazaya's name was everywhere. Not loudly, not in headlines yet, but in calls that ended too quickly, in messages that said, is it true? And in glances that lingered a second too long. The city was doing what it always did best, feeding on whispers. Zenobia locked herself in her study. For the first time in decades, she didn't attend her morning meetings. She didn't answer calls. She sat alone, staring at the garden through the tall windows, replaying every detail of the night before. Kazaya's calm voice. Her steady eyes. The way she said you already know. Zenobia had always believed fear was the strongest tool. Fear made people obedient. Fear made people silent. Fear made people disappear. But Keziah had come back without fear. That was the problem. Xavier confronted his mother that evening. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't brave. It was hesitant, confused, and late, very late. Is it true? He asked, standing in the doorway like a child who already knew the answer. Zenobia didn't turn around. What exactly? That she has children. That there, he couldn't finish. Zenobia set her teacup down with precision. You're tired, she said. You're overwhelmed. You shouldn't listen to gossip. Are they mine? He whispered. That made her turn. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, offended by the question itself. You don't need to know that. Xavier flinched. What does that mean? It means, Zenobia said coldly, that what matters is what people believe. Not what is. Something in him cracked then. Not loudly. Quietly. Like a hairline fracture spreading under pressure. She looked at me like I was nothing, he said. Like I never mattered. Like I was just a mistake. Zenobia's voice softened, but only on the surface. You are my son. Everything I've done was for you. No, he said suddenly. Everything you did was for yourself. The words surprised both of them. Zenobia stared at him, truly stared, as if seeing a stranger. Then her expression hardened. Go rest, she said. You're not thinking clearly. He left without another word. Keziah felt the shift too. It came in the form of an envelope slipped under her apartment door. No name. No return address. Inside was a single invitation. A charity auction. Hosted by the St. Clair Foundation. Zenobia's signature sat neatly at the bottom. Daniel read it twice. This is a trap. Yes, Keziah said calmly. And an opportunity. You don't have to go. I do, she replied. She wouldn't invite me unless she was desperate. That night, after the twins were asleep, Keziah opened the old laptop she rarely touched. It took time to find what she was looking for. Folders within folders. Photos she had never deleted because some part of her knew they mattered. The lake house. She studied the images again, slower this time. The smiles that didn't reach eyes. The hands that lingered too long. The way Zenobia always seemed to be watching, even when she pretended not to care. And then she saw it. The reflection dot small. Easy to miss. Zenobia's face in the mirror behind her and Langston. Sharp. Focused. Waiting. Keziah closed the laptop and leaned back. She finally had proof. But proof meant nothing without witnesses. The auction hall was packed the night of the event. The city's elite turned out in full force, dressed in elegance and expectation. This was their theater, and they expected entertainment. Zenobia greeted guests like a queen returning to her throne. Polite. Controlled. Untouchable. Until Keziah walked in. She didn't announce herself. She didn't seek attention. She simply existed. And that was enough. Eyes followed her. Conversations stalled. Phones subtly lifted. Saria sat beside Xavier, her hand trembling slightly in his. She hadn't slept in days. Zenobia's grip on her life had tightened since Keziah's return, every smile a warning, every instruction a command. When Keziah's name was announced as a special guest and contributor, Zenobia's jaw tightened. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Kazuya stepped onto the stage when her turn came, microphone steady in her hand. She didn't rush. She didn't smile. "Good evening," she said. "I was invited here tonight in the name of charity. In the name of children. And that feels appropriate." Zenobia's eyes narrowed. "There was a time," Kazuya continued, "when I was told my worth depended entirely on my ability to produce a child. When my silence was expected. When my pain was inconvenient." The room grew quiet. "I was called useless," she said evenly. "And I believed it. For a while." Zenobia stood halfway from her seat. "This is inappropriate." Kazuya raised her phone. The photo appeared on the large screen behind her. The mirror. Zenobia's reflection. The hall erupted. Gasps. Whispers. Shouts. "That woman," Kazuya said, pointing calmly, "did not just doubt her son. She orchestrated a plan to replace him. To use me. To control outcomes like pieces on a board." Langston's face went white. Saria stood. Her hands shook as she removed her shawl, then her dress shifted, and the truth fell to the floor with a dull, artificial thud. The fake belly. The illusion. Zenobia screamed. Xavier didn't move. He simply stared at the evidence of his life collapsing. Kazuya looked at him once. Not with anger. Not with triumph. With closure. "I was never useless," she said quietly. "I was just inconvenient to your lies." She stepped off the stage as chaos exploded behind her. She didn't stay to watch the fall. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. For the first time in years, Kazuya breathed freely. She went home to her children. And the city, finally, was forced to face the truth it had helped hide. Kazuya had never felt a calm so deep before, a silence that was almost unreal, resting between the chaos of the past and the storm of the coming evening. Yet even in this rare moment of quiet, her mind raced. The charity auction was tomorrow, and every detail had to be perfect. Every glance, every word, every gesture could either reveal the truth or leave it hidden. She went over the plan again and again in her head, imagining the reactions, the gasps, the stunned faces. She allowed herself no room for error. Morning came with the sun spilling golden light into her apartment. She moved with precise rhythm, preparing Kenzo and Kalia for the day. Their laughter, unburdened and free, was a balm to her tense nerves. She kissed them goodbye and watched them leave with her father for a short outing, the first real moment of independence she had allowed herself in years. Her phone buzzed with messages, volunteers confirming attendance, suppliers sending photos of auction items, friends offering moral support. She answered each, her tone calm, unwavering. Inside, her pulse raised with anticipation. She thought of Zenobia, sitting across the hall with that perfect mask of composure, unaware that the very tools she had used to manipulate lives would be turned against her. Kazuya spent the afternoon rehearsing her speech, not for fluency or style, but for precision. Each word had to land like a scalpel, cutting through the carefully constructed illusions. She practiced holding the microphone, stepping onto the stage, and pausing at the exact moment to draw the audience's attention. She knew timing had to be perfect because chaos, once unleashed, could either destroy or liberate. Evening came quickly, a rush of excitement and tension. The hall buzzed with the soft hum of anticipation, the clinking of glasses, and murmurs of curiosity. The city's elite had arrived, drawn not only by philanthropy but also by the undercurrent of scandal that Kazuya had carefully leaked. She saw familiar faces, reporters with cameras ready, socialites whispering speculations. And there, in the front row, sat the St. Clair family. Zenobia's expression was a carefully maintained mask of serenity, but Keziah could see the flicker of impatience in her eyes. Xavier sat beside her, his usual polite smile stiff, betraying confusion beneath the surface. Langston, aloof and smug, scanned the room as if already victorious. And Saria, elegantly draped in her flowing dress, exuded an aura of calm that barely hid the tension within. Keziah stepped onto the stage. Silence fell as she approached the microphone. Every eye turned toward her. She drew in a breath, feeling the weight of the past 3 years, the humiliation, the fear, and the anger, crystallize into one sharp focus. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice clear, confident. "Thank you for coming to support the Hope House Orphanage tonight." She allowed a brief pause, letting the words settle. Charity is not just giving, it is revealing. It is uncovering truths that are often hidden beneath the surface of appearances. She scanned the hall, her gaze settling on Zenobia for just a moment. The older woman's composure wavered imperceptibly. Keziah continued, each word deliberate, measured. 3 years ago, I was publicly deemed useless. My marriage, my life, dismissed, discarded, all because I could not fulfill someone else's obsession with legacy. A ripple of murmurs ran through the audience. Keziah let it flow, giving them a moment to digest the implications. The truth, she continued, is far more cruel than words can describe. But truth has a way of revealing itself, no matter how carefully it is hidden. She pulled a photograph from her purse, holding it aloft. The flash of camera lights reflected off the image, a seemingly ordinary scene at the lake house, a glass of water, a hallway reflected in a mirror. "This," she said, her voice unwavering, "is a reflection of the moment when a plan was executed, one designed to manipulate, to control, and to destroy. It was a plan orchestrated by one woman, Zenobia Street Clair, to use me as an instrument for her ambition." She let the words hang, heavy and precise. And yet, the plan failed. Keziah advanced to the next image on her phone, projected onto the large screen behind her. It was Saria, the pregnant wife, standing as if in a trance. Slowly, deliberately, she lifted the flowing shawl that concealed her stomach. The hall held its breath as the impossible was revealed. Under the elegant dress, Saria's stomach was flat, a prosthetic, an illusion of pregnancy created by Zenobia's manipulation. Gasps erupted, whispers grew into shouts, and flashes of phone cameras illuminated stunned faces. Zenobia's carefully curated image of power faltered, her expression a mask of frozen horror. Langston's confident demeanor crumbled, leaving him pale and trembling. Xavier, caught in the middle, was paralyzed with confusion. Keziah stepped down from the stage, her voice soft but piercing, speaking directly to Xavier. "Everything you were told, everything you believed about your family, was a lie. The truth was manipulated, twisted, and presented to control you, to control me. But now, it is revealed. The real heirs are here, alive, walking proof of what was taken from us." She displayed the results of a DNA test, undeniable evidence of her children's true lineage. Silence fell over the hall, dense and suffocating, before erupting into a cacophony of shock and outrage. Keziah's mission was complete. The lies, manipulations, and cruelty had been publicly unmasked. She walked through the parted crowd, past reporters and gossiping elites, and out into the night air, breathing deeply, feeling a sense of liberation she had never known. The past, heavy with betrayal and pain, lay behind her, safely contained within a photograph, a diary, and the truth she had fought to reveal. Her victory was not just personal, it was a statement to the world: cruelty, manipulation, and lies cannot withstand the light of truth, especially when wielded by someone who refuses to be broken. Keziah had reclaimed her life, protected her children, and delivered justice in the most public, undeniable way possible.